Welcome to YouTube. I mean, to me, I guess I'm welcoming myself to YouTube. So, I don't know if you know me. My name is Ara Memorian. I run a team called the Spring Team in Toronto, and we are the only team that's been running week over week data in Toronto since COVID began. 122 weeks in a row. This is the 122nd week. And I feel like, we've been putting this on Instagram and Facebook, and we're kind of limited to our 90 or 60 second reels. Now we have 90-second reels, but I feel like we just need to talk about the market more fully. So this is, I'm in a hotel, I'm in Ottawa, I'm not at home, so we're just going to get this video going right now. If you do not receive this, we have over 45,000 people that receive this email every single week. So make sure you subscribe or whatever the hell you're supposed to do on YouTube. And I want you to get this email. So I think I can put a link here. So there's going to be something here, hopefully, that will allow you to subscribe to that weekly report. So 122 weeks into this, and I'm going to use my laptop down here. Maybe down the road, we will do some more like on-screen type of animations. But if you go to the springteam.ca/blog, you can follow along. But the main thing that we've been looking at, the main thing that's been on top of my mind right now and for the past little while is, number one, a lot of people, I want to reframe the conversation around the way the market is right now. We keep calling it a down market. And of course it's down from the highs of the first quarter of 2022. But when you really look at what's actually happening in the market, supply isn't really piling on. And I should not paraphrase, it's not the right word. I should, let's roll back a little bit and kind of give you an idea of what this market report is and what areas it covers. So my first big problem with the data that was previously introduced and shared and regurgitated or created by other real estate professionals is we were using old data. Month over month information is not all that relevant to what's happening today in Toronto. And I'm not one to ever really talk about the Canadian real estate market as a whole. I don't believe there really is such thing as the Canadian real estate market. Sure, if you want to look at the entire country and just see how all the markets are performing, when you say Canadian real estate is going to be down an X percent, or this study revealed this, or this study revealed that, you have to understand what that means to you in the community, and sometimes it's even street specific. That is the most important thing that people don't understand. Toronto is made up of a ton of micro markets that have always reacted very differently to economic turmoil. I wrote about this at the beginning of COVID. I will post that link here. You can read my thoughts on previous unprecedented events. Right now, back to what I was talking about, the down market conversation. We are experiencing a more balanced market. There are more buyers removed from the market, waiting on the sidelines to see what's going to happen with interest rates and the economy in general, than there are new listings piling on to just get out of the market because they're panicking or whatever it is. It's been proven over and over and over and over again, from SARS way back in 2003 to the financial crisis of 2008, that Toronto's urban markets do not have a bunch of over-leveraged panic sellers. Every time there has been some sort of economic uncertainty, Toronto's urban communities have held strong and eventually popped off again, which is what's going to happen at some point down the road. So it's not a question of is Toronto real estate going to rebound and get back into a seller's market. That's a given. 100% that's going to happen. The only unknown is when and how. So I really want to focus on the opportunities that are available in the market right now, not necessarily the fact that it's down. And in fact, the majority of people that are really bearish and complaining about a market, not complaining, but like gloating in this down environment that they keep going on about, are people that aren't real estate investors. They don't own real estate, or they're basic real estate agents that have no idea what they're talking about. They do not transact day to day. So the only joy that they get out of their lives is by getting these reactions from other real estate bears in TikTok or Twitter or wherever the hell else you happen to be. So the opportunities exist in this market. Opportunities exist when the market is popping off. Opportunities exist when the market's at the bottom. So right now, the biggest opportunity that exists in the market is in the assignment world. Assignments are when let's say I walk into a sales center, or I call a pre-construction agent, I buy a pre-construction unit, construction started, maybe occupancy is like a year away, or even a couple months away, or a couple weeks away, and I want to sell that unit on an assignment. Because I don't own it yet, I've got a contract that says I can buy it for X amount of dollars. I am going to sell that contract to somebody else, maybe at a small profit, but right now we have some deals that are at or even below that original purchase price. I've emailed them out to our clients. The ones that I have now are probably going to be sold today, but you need to be in touch with me so we can get you on that list pronto, at least before next week's report when I get a fresh batch of assignments. So anyway, this isn't really a down market. It's a more balanced market where buyer sentiment is affected quite a bit. There's the next interest rate announcement coming up on June the 13th. What's going to happen on June the 13th? The Bank of Canada website has already a forecasted half-point increase built in, but I really feel like there's going to be a 0.75% increase coming up this July the 13th. As a matter of fact, it's the 6th today. So we are talking 7 days from now, we should have a 0.75% increase, which is going to affect the affordability of some buyers. Now remember, people that bought in January and February, they're locked into whatever variables or fixed mortgages they have. So like all these like losses or downs we're talking about they're just on paper numbers. Like people aren't in a position where they have to all of a sudden sell these properties, or enough of them aren't in a position where they have to all of a sudden sell these properties at a massive loss to create this pipeline of listing supply that's just going to all of a sudden make Toronto and its surrounding communities affordable again. Like that's just not a reasonable position. The only thing that's more affordable today than it was a few months ago are assignments, because those are risky deals. They require a little bit more cash, and the outcomes, the timeline of the outcome is more uncertain. The assignments can complete in a week, or it could take 3 months. It's just all in the hands of the developer. So if you look at the actual numbers, and I'll try to pop this up on the screen to show you later, and I have charts and graphs on the blog, and you can kind of see how it's been performing since March 1st of 2020 up until right now, and you can see kind of the volatility and stability of the various communities that I look at. So what the areas that I'm looking at are the urban Toronto markets. So when I say urban Toronto, I'm talking from the Victoria Park, or like the North Beaches area, Danforth, Bloor, the Etobicoke Toronto border, or Mimico or Etobicoke Toronto border, and then down to the lake. So that huge kind of what I would consider a relatively urban community. And by urban, I mean it's walkable, close to transit, lots of employment. There's just lots of stuff going on around there. So right now, we're at the, last week, we were second best supplied during COVID. We had 680 houses in that market area in November of 2020. That's when houses just started to kind of not be as hot as they were. At that time, we had about 3,500 condos on the market. Right now, we have 583 houses on the market and 1,837 condos on the market. Now, why are those numbers super significant? Because last week, there was about 8 to 9% more units on the market than there are this week. Could that have something to do with the typical seasonal slowdown? Yes, because remember, this is July. The sun's out, guns out, people are out and having a good time. This time of year has always slowed down. So there's that slowdown on top of that buyer sentiment being affected by the unknown of what their mortgage payments might look like with these increases coming up over the next little while. So remember, it's not that the prices aren't being affected right now in communities because there are a ton of listings that have taken us to the point of oversupply. We are still within 2 months of inventory and less. And remember, a balanced market is between 3 to 6 months of inventory. Closer to 6, you swing towards a severe buyer's market. But we are at 2 months or less on the majority of Toronto's urban communities and surrounding areas that I follow, which I'll mention later. There are some property types that are better supplied, just over 2 months, but we do not have a supply issue here. We have a buyer sentiment issue. And that's going to change. As these next increases happen, as interest rate increases become normalized and less anxiety and fear inducing, as people see the products that are available to them in this new higher rate environment, they're going to get more comfortable buying. And yeah, we are down off of the December, January, February prices that we were experiencing in Toronto at that time. The first quarter of 2022, if you were a buyer, you had to be comfortable setting a record with almost every single sale. If I got 1.5 on a place today, let's say this was this past January, if I got 1.5 today, that next property that was very similar was trading at 1.6, and that was happening. So those properties that really somehow went from, normally trading around the 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, all of a sudden we're trading at 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, but money was cheap, so people were doing that. So now we've got folks that are locked into those houses, and there's going to be a bit of time before some of that value is recaptured. But that's not the case across the board. There are some properties today we have, I don't like to use anecdotal evidence as fact of how the market is performing, which unfortunately a lot of Twitter warriors and TikTok warriors and the odd YouTube agent is trying to tell you. They're using anecdotal evidence, one-off anomalies, as an indicator of how the entire market is performing. And that's not good. Like, I can tell you that I had 11 offers on a semi-detached house in Leslieville 3 weeks ago, and we sold it for a phenomenal price. But that doesn't mean every house in the market is doing that. And there's also a story of a house that sold for $300,000 less than it traded for in January, because that January buyer couldn't close on that property because, you know what? They probably shouldn't have been a buyer in the first place. They were misled by their mortgage people. They were just assuming they could make this thing happen, and it just didn't happen. So these anomalies need to be pushed aside, and you need to focus on exactly what's happening in the market that you are interested in purchasing in, or to understand how your home, and I'm talking about a condo and a house because condos are homes too, might perform in the market. So that's why I like to break it down to week over week. So why I am comfortable with this market and why I'm so comfortable with Toronto as a long-term investment is simply because of how our sellers and buyers react during times like this. In other markets, let's say in the United States, for example, let's talk about the United States, for example, for a second. If anybody ever tries to tell you, well, it happened in the US in 2008, it's inevitably going to happen here. If they tell you this, and they are in any sort of position where they are managing your money or you're trusting them with big financial decisions, you need to look at them in the face and say, you're an idiot, you are fired, please go away. What happened in the US in 2008 is nowhere near the financial position of the majority, 99.99% of the borrowers and homeowners here. There was massive predatory lending practices. You didn't have to have a job. You didn't have to have any income. You didn't have to have any money. You could get into any property you wanted, artificially inflating the price of these things that were flipped over and over and over again before even closing. A very different economy, a very different market with very different lending practices in areas that had no business trading for what they were trading for. Why do you think Toronto does so well? Could it be because we have 4 of the best colleges and universities on the planet? That we are like a technology hub that has created some of the most incredible products and services you can imagine. We are a hub for tech, for crypto, for film, for finance, schools, healthcare. There is so much going on for Toronto. There is so much high quality employment here that making a bet against Toronto long term is a guaranteed loser. A guaranteed loser. I don't even know what I was talking about before I got onto that whole situation. I really don't remember what I was talking about. But the whole point of all of this is there's a lot of anxiety in the air right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air right now. The only thing we know is that interest rates are going up, but they've done that before. It's like, but Aura, what about the late 80s, early 90s when it took 13 years to recover from the price corrections of that time? That's a very good question. Like, do you think that we're going to be in an environment where we have 14, 15, 16, 19% interest rates? I don't believe so. I think the Canadian government has learned its lesson from that time of quantitative tightening when liquidity became a massive issue. Money was really hard to get. But I feel like threading that needle between some quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, and playing with interest rates, I think has become a more complex issue that I think governments understand better. I think that we will be in a recession. I think that we will end up in a recession. I think that once we have interest rates that go north of 2%, that usually signals overnight lending rates, but I mean the rate at which banks borrow money. I feel like at that point, we will be in a recession, but during a recession, there's usually downward pressure on interest rates. So we're not in an environment where we're just going to have constant increasing of rates. In 2022, we know it. July 13th is going to have probably a 0.75% increase, but right now the forecast is 0.5, but we've been surprised at every single one since then. What's going to happen at the September meeting? I don't know, another 0.75. And if you're a mortgage broker listening to this, if you'd like to, comment below on what you think consumer rates might look like at that time. I think that buyers are going to be still a little afraid until the end of 2022. But if you're a buyer and you're not afraid, we've got buyers that are picking up phenomenal deals right now. Picking up phenomenal deals in the assignment space, picking up phenomenal deals for less than ideal houses that would have traded for an insane amount of money before. Properties that need work. There are local market makers that are buying these properties every single day still. Again, not using anecdotal evidence as fact, but just as some light proof that there is some market maker activity happening. We've sold sight unseen land value properties for obscene amounts of money. These are people betting long term. It's going to take 6 to 9 months for the permitting process to happen. By the time they start construction, by the time they have something to turn around and sell, perhaps a 2-year window. That's the window that a lot of people are working with right now. We're probably going to be in a relatively uncertain, more balanced market for about 18 months, maybe a little bit longer. It's going to take some time for all of this stuff right now, especially for any recessionary effects to show their ugly faces. So it doesn't just happen right now. All the things that are happening right now are going to trigger certain things that will reveal themselves down the road as consumers react differently to how things are changing out there. So are we going to be in an environment in Toronto specifically where we have properties that are worth half what they were in 2021? No, I don't believe that that's the case. There's too many people coming to this city. There's too much demand for real estate here. And honestly, as long as rentals are going as insane as they are, and let's talk about rentals for a second, because the rental market right now is doing things that I have not seen it do for many, many years. Because what happens if people aren't buying, right? We're talking about housing here still. We're talking about housing. Housing. This is not like a stock. This is not like Luna, the recent crypto that went to zero. We don't have a situation where real estate is going to go to zero. Toronto is too important globally for that to happen. There's too much attention here for that to happen. So, oh my God, I keep forgetting what I've been talking about. Oh yes. So the rental market is absolutely on fire. We cannot keep anything on the market for more than 24 hours right now. We have sent notices to tenants that have been in their properties for 1 year with up to 100% increases because that's where the market is right now. And remember, any property that was not rented or used for residential purposes, doesn't matter if it's a new construction or whatever, but mostly this applies to new construction. But if a property was not ever used for residential purposes prior to November 2018, so if it's a new residential unit, you can increase the rent as much as you want. There is no rent control applied. So example, we have one unit in 30 Ordnance, Garrison Point condos. We had the hardest time renting this thing out for $2,500 last year, this time last year. We just sent them a notice for $1,000 increase to $3,500 a month. That's just what's happening right now. That's the market. Other exactly similar units are renting for $3,300 to $3,500 a month. So as long as that rental support is there, cap rates make sense, then condo values are going to be maintained and supported. There's no reason for a condo that is generating, $3,500 a month to decrease in value because there might be decreased end user demand, meaning there'd be fewer buyers that can afford to buy to live there, but the rental demand is there. So there's always going to be an investor that's going to be happy with a 4% cap rate. We can talk about cap rates in another video. But we've been selling stuff from 2.8% to a 6% cap rate was our most recent sale with a commercial residential property at Gerrard and Logan. 807 Gerrard. It's on the website, springteam.ca/our-listings. It's all there. So anyway, long story short, I'm going to have more focus to these, but I wanted to just get one out there just to kind of practice my YouTubing. I would love for you to subscribe if you're watching this. And honestly, I have no time for dicks. So please, if you have comments, let's talk. Let's like have a normal conversation in the comments. But if you come at me, I'm just going to remove you. I'm not even going to engage in conversation with you. So that's all I have to say this week. So make sure you signed up for the newsletter, subscribe right here or wherever the buttons are for subscribing. And I would love to see you on the next video. I'm going to do these weekly in a more organized setup. Have a good one, everybody.